Coming up on Varsity Sports, the ladies have had their turn this week. The spotlight stops on boys high school hoops in the Dakota.
We'll talk to some defending champs, introduce you to some new faces, and tell you who will dominate on the court this winter.
All that plus preseason power rankings for all 5 classes. Varsity Sports tips off right now. Well, last week we gave you the girls' basketball landscape. This week we're going to outline the competition in boys' basketball across the Dakotas. How's everybody doing? Alongside Jason Andera, I'm Jay Elsen. Well, we begin with the big schools in North Dakota. It's almost cliche to talk about how wide open the field is at the beginning of a season, but this year, Jason, we could certainly see parity take it to a whole new level.
Yeah, I believe that. The 11 players that were named All-State or Honorable Mention last season were all seniors. That leaves room at the top for stars to emerge. Defending WDA champion Century is faced with finding some new parts for their team, much like the rest of this league.
We lost a lot of good basketball players because of graduation last year, not only on our team, but other teams across the conference. So, I would probably say experience-wise, you got to give the nod to Minot High School because they have a great deal of their basketball team back. But after that, I think a majority of the conference is going to be playing new kids. So we think this year we're going to have to do it by committee. We have two players that had gained some varsity experience last year, starting with Riley Henderson and Dalton Feeney. And then the rest of the crew is going to be new. So we think we're going to have to do it by committee this year, both on the offense and defensive end. But I think we've got the type of kids that are willing to work hard and get better, and we're excited for the new season.
Well, like Coach Mattern said, many are pointing to the experience of Minot and pegging them as the team to beat.
With 4 starters, 2 of which were all conference and 3 of them each all scored in double figures. We feel that we have a nice core coming back. We have a little bit of size. Braden Lund is the returning center, averaged 10 and 8 rebounds, and Noah Bosch was an all-conference forward who averaged 12 points a game. And then we have a really good point guard in Dakota Halverson, who was our leading scorer and all-conference kid last year. And then Ben Belinsky was our starter at the wing, and he had a nice year and is really a steadying influence and rebounds really well for a guard. But then we got Nick Soltis, who's back as well, another kid that started at times and played a lot of minutes. And then we have some size. We got a little youth. We got a couple of sophomores we'll have to plug in, and then another senior or 2, and then another junior, a 6'5" junior that has already played a couple games for us. So, we're going to have a little depth, which I think is people are looking at. I know we got kids returning, but like everybody else, we still got a lot of learning to do, and a lot of things that, as we showed this weekend, a lot of things that got to get fixed.
In the East, Grand Forks Red River was one of the younger teams last season, which means their expectations are a little higher this year.
Well, the nice thing about last year is, we did lose a lot of players, but yet we had a lot of guys that got to play last year. You have Shaden Keplin back, would be a needy all-conference kid back. Braden Hansen started most of the year, other than when he was hurt. Carson Dennis started half the year. Tanner Soline started a part of the year. So it's kind of, we got some experience with some of the sophomores. So hopefully this year they don't come out and they don't have that same look in their eyes that they did the first time last year. And then for the other guys, they can feel more comfortable since we have that experience.
Wahpeton might have the top player in Class A this season. We talked to head coach Jeff Rolfe about how Blaze Irwin will raise the Huskies game.
He might be one of the best players in Class A. He's about 6'5" or 6'6". I think we don't use him in the post a lot, but I think we could post him if we had a mismatch there. He can shoot the 3. One of the knocks on Blaze has always been that he can't drive to the basket, and I think that's improved. We saw that some this summer, and saw that even in practice, since we started 2 weeks ago. So he's I think he's got the whole package. The knock on him, he's not aggressive enough, and those things. But I think some of that is he's willing to pass to his teammates when they're open and make a play that way too. So I think he's going to have a breakout year this year.
Well, now that we've heard from several of this year's preseason contenders, let's take a look at Jandy's preseason top 5.
Well, we talked about how even this field is this year. I believe it's going to be a dogfight, and you could probably put 8, 9 teams in this field. I pared it down to these top 5. I got Minot at the top, which most people agree with Dakota Halverson, Noah Bosch, Braden Lund, all double-digit scores from last year back in the mix. They've got the most experience. The most talent? Well, we'll see. They came out to a nice start to their season. We'll see if they can keep that up. Grand Forks Red River, they had Shaden Keplin, who did a great job last year for them, was an all-conference player. He's going to be very important. And then on the boards, Bryce Bommersbach, Ty Strauss, some very intense guys on the board. A lot of people pointing to Wahpeton as the team to beat out east. I've got him down to number 3, but I do think Blaze Irwin could be that top player in the class. He's the second leading returning scorer, and then he's got some great help with Carson Zarek and a lot of other guys who is returning from an injury from the football season as well. So when he comes back fully, you should see Wahpeton move up this list. And then Century, always a good team. West Fargo, a ton of good players once again. They're going to need to find out who might step up and be that player, that go-to player that they had last year. But a lot of good candidates for West Fargo, so look for them in the top 5. You don't see Fargo Davies and Fargo Shanley, teams that are my 5A and 5B contenders. They are very close to being in this top 5.
You know, it's always fun when there is no clear-cut number 1, I think. I mean, because we can come in and we can just watch and we can enjoy the games and see it all shakes out.
You saw it last year. There was a lot of good teams at the top, and then there was definitely a second tier.
Yeah, right.
The games this year, you're going to see teams like Mandan, Dickinson, Bismarck. You're going to see teams in Fargo, like we talked about. Davies is going to have a good team. Fargo South is not that far behind. A lot of teams are going to be able to compete this year and pull off some big upsets.
It's going to be a fun year in Class A in North Dakota boys basketball. Well, Fargo Oak Grove made a memorable 3-game run last season to take the Class B title. We'll hear from the defending champs next.
Varsity Sports on Midco Sports Network is presented by AE Tech Electrical Training Center in Rapid City. Varsity Sports on Midco Sports Network is presented by Shields.
And welcome back to the Varsity Sports Boys Basketball Preview. Well, Fargo Oak Grove emerged from a thrilling State B tournament last March, clinching the title with an overtime win against Rugby.
Well, the Grovers were led by Carter Crutchman. He scored 71 points in that 3-day run, and they also have Christian Adams, who averaged 17.5 points last year. Both those guys are back for the defending champs, but they still have some important roles to fill.
Probably our 2 biggest needs are we got to rebound. We lost some pretty key guys there. And I think one of our big losses would be a tough on-ball defender. We had 2 of the best in the state, I thought, last year, Colton Dangerfield and Austin. And they just hounded guys, and we got to find someone to do that. And I think we have the guys here. They just got to buy into their roles like we did last year and come up and make plays for us.
We're going to find out who our new leaders are, and our roles completely changed. So it's a new team, new players, and it's a new mindset going forward this year.
Well, Oak Grove is the defending champ, but as we get our first glance now, Jason, at your preseason power rankings in Class B here, it's the reigning runners-up that are holding down that number 1 spot.
Well, people forget, Rugby took Fargo Oak Grove into overtime. They had an undefeated run up until that point.
Yeah.
They were really the team to beat last year, and they have a lot of great players back. You know, they just lost 2 seniors. 3 of their top 3 scorers are all back, including Bradley Heidelbaugh, 23.7 points per game back. So don't forget about Rugby. But Fargo Oak Grove will be very good. They do have some key roles to fill, but when you've got Carter Crutchman and you've got Christian Adams filling it up, that's the hardest thing to find, is guys who can create their own shots and make their own shots. So 2 very good teams. A lot of people are pointing to North Star as the team to beat in the entire class, and that's because they bring all 5 starters back, 2 of which average over 18 points per game. Again, hard to beat experience like that. So North Star, even though had 8 losses last year, they were playing their best ball by March. They should continue that on into this year. And then look for New England. That's a team that could really emerge. Only 4 losses last year. Bring back their top player. In fact, 4 players are back that scored double digits. And then you add 2 guys, a 6'7" and a 6'5" transfer. A couple nice gifts. Now, how will they mesh? How will they get that together?
Always the question, right?
That will be a big question to see how they do. And then Cavalier has their leading scorer back in Brock Robbins, a 19-point-per-game guy. Off a tremendous team. You know there's going to be great athletes for the Tornadoes, so they'll be in that top 5 as well. You
know, you look at North Star, just a couple years removed from being probably one of the more explosive teams that we've ever seen, and all of a sudden they've got 5 starters back. The Bearcats, certainly a team Yeah, you've got them at number 3 now, but I wouldn't be surprised they end up a little higher than that.
They could be right in that mix, but there's so many good teams right above them. Jeff Hagler does have a great team. He knows it, but it's going to be a tough road because they've got a tough schedule.
All right, well, that is a look at the preseason picture in North Dakota boys basketball. When we come back, we'll begin our scan of South Dakota. You're watching the Varsity Sports boys basketball preview.
Varsity Sports on Midco Sports Network is presented by AE Tech Electrical Training Center in Rapid City. Varsity Sports on Midco Sports Network is presented by Shields.
And welcome back. Well, we start in Class AA in South Dakota, where the Roosevelt Rough Riders claimed a title despite losing all 5 starters from the year before. Now, this season, they're faced with the same situation as they try to replace the entire starting lineup.
The man in charge of placing that talent in the right spot was coaching against Roosevelt in the semifinals last year. Darius Buss moves from Rapid City Stevens to Roosevelt, and he's excited to take over the Riders.
Developing that relationship with the kids and just getting to know them and trying to develop that relationship, that family atmosphere with me during the season, and then continue the tradition. I mean, they've done a nice job here the last couple of years, and Lee did a great job with them, and we want to continue that and bring our own piece to it as well, but continue that tradition.
Now, there is one valuable piece that will be missing for Buss and the Riders early on this season, and that is Taryn Christian. The injury that ended his football season has him sidelined for the time being, but he expects to be back on the court soon.
Hopefully January sometime is what we're looking at. I gotta have another surgery, and then after that, just kind of strengthen some things up and get back to running. And then I'm looking at early January. That is what I'm hoping.
Lincoln came into last season as one of the favorites, and after weathering some early season strife, the Patriots climbed their way back into contention, making it all the way to the finals before losing to Roosevelt. This year, Lincoln is looking for some familiar faces to drive them back to the top.
But I think the way we finished last year, looking for the right shot instead of my shot all the time, I think these guys are buying into that, and they're going to move the ball around. They're going to get the ball inside to our bigs because that's where our strength's at. And our bigs, they can kick it out to our shooters at any time. So I think our chemistry is sitting pretty good right now.
We got some returning guys, some experience, some bigs, some quick, some shooters. So, we can go pretty far. We just got to work hard every day. We can't take any days off.
I guess the one big goal that we all look forward to is winning the state championship. But, right now we just got to focus on one game at a time and just go from there.
Obviously, we want to do the best we can throughout the season. And obviously at the end, win a championship. Last year we fell short, and it's made us hungry and determined, and always got that drive now to get there.
Sioux Falls once again makes up most of the top 5. O'Gorman and Washington will both be better this season, and here's what their head coaches are expecting.
And I don't say this every year, but I really like this group of kids. Again, they're very passionate, like I said. They're excited about what we're doing. They tried to take a step forward from the last couple of years in the sense of, not being where we wanted to be. And I thought they had a great offseason, so we're really excited about this group of kids.
We have 2 letter winners that are seniors that'll be starting for us in Cole Benson and Dengu. We have some junior guards right now in Ty Smith, Carter Keller, Sam Saganis that played quality minutes last year, 15, 20, 25 minutes a game. And so we have some players come back with experience.
Well, we just heard from all 4 Sioux Falls coaches, and it's no coincidence that their teams are all a part of your preseason power rankings in Class AA.
Yeah, you know what? I looked at a couple of the other rankings. Sometimes I like to compare, and almost everybody does have all Sioux Falls schools in the top 5. There's a couple that don't. A lot of people like Yankton. I don't have Yankton in my top 5, as you can see, but everybody agrees. Lincoln probably has the most promise of anybody in this class, but we did put them at number 1 last season too, and it took them a while to get going. This year, though, I think a lot of their parts are seniors. You look at Malik Dunn and what Addison Park can do on the low post, or they can take their game out, and the guards that they have with Tate Lindsay and, of course, Caleb Johnson, who just really turned into a rock star last March, hitting every shot in sight. So look for Lincoln to be that team to beat. I think Washington has almost as much talent, maybe not quite as much experience. O'Gorman is a team I might have ranked higher than some people, but it's because they've got such a complete team. They remind me a lot of what Roosevelt did last year with perfect people in the perfect spots. Everybody knows their roles, and they're going to have a good team concept. And Roosevelt, they might come off to a little bit of a rough start and make that run in the middle of January, but they've got a good head coach in Darius Buss and some good parts.
Well, and that was part of my question here. Is Roosevelt, is it a talent thing, the fact that, again, for the second straight year they're trying to replace an entire starting lineup, or how much does the coaching change have to do with them being at number 4 at this point for you? Because, as you said, Darius Buss, we know how good of a coach he is.
He is a good coach.
It is going to take some time.
They had a good coach with Lee Taylor, too. In fact, one of the best. So to answer that question, I think it's the athletes. I mean, it's a tradition of basketball at Roosevelt over the last few years. Kids are coming up, waiting their turn to play, and there are plenty of fresh faces that have waited their turn and are going to be big contributors this year for the Rough Riders. So I think they might be a little underranked at 4. Some people might think they'd be a little overranked. All
right. Well, we're going to stay tuned on that, I guess. Well, next we move to Class A. Madison keeps winning titles, but have the contenders trim the gap? We'll hear what the Bulldogs have to say about that when we come back.
Varsity Sports on Midco Sports Network is presented by AE Tech Electrical Training Center in Rapid City. Varsity Sports on Midco Sports Network is presented by Shields.
And welcome back. Well, Madison has collected 4 Class A titles in the last 6 seasons, including back-to-back championships, but the chase for a 3rd straight title will be a daunting task.
The Bulldogs will feature a lot of new faces, but their incredible depth over the last few seasons should make them a contender once again.
Well, obviously we lose an awful lot of experience. You know, we had 5 senior starters last year, and our first 3 guys off the bench were seniors. We didn't have a lot of underclassmen to get a lot of varsity playing time, but that doesn't mean they weren't playing. They were competing against those same kids every day in practice, and they're ready to prove themselves, and they've had a good off season, and we've had a good few practices under our belt this year, and they're ready to go.
First goal is just winning that first game, taking one step at a time.
I'm excited to play with them because we're all keep each other positive and we click well. So if one of us gets down, we know how to get each other back up. So
during open gyms, helped out with the underclassmen and got them going and got them excited for the season.
There are a host of teams trying to knock Madison off its perch this season, including Sioux Valley, who put together a great regular season last year, only to fall short of their own expectations at the state tournament.
This year we definitely want to get back to state and build on what we did last year. We weren't satisfied with our 6th place finish at all. Being the seed we should have done a lot better.
And we were really just going to have to learn a lot of stuff. Of course, we lost 8 seniors last year, but I think our young guys are going to step up and should be a fun year for us.
The same year in and year out, and that is to be in position to compete with the best in the state by season's end. And we feel we have quality enough guys to accomplish that again this year.
Oh, we just heard from a couple of the Class A contenders, Jason. Now it's time to find out how you think they stack up in your preseason power rankings.
An interesting mix of teams here. You've got the defending champs, Madison, who've done it year after year, now have 2 repeat championships in the last 6 years for a total of 4 titles. So they've got a lot of returning depth, but they are missing some key ingredients at the top. They might not have those top-level players that they've had, so they're down at number 4. You see me put St. Thomas More at number 1, and this is a very young team, so it's hard sometimes to put young teams this high, but I think their ceiling is out of the gym. You've got Adam Baker, who transferred from Custer. He actually played a part in beating St. Thomas More last year. He actually beat him when he was sick, and he still single-handedly led the team to victory. So he's a 6'8 guy inside. And then you've got the sophomore, Isaac Kordemeyer, another 6'8 presence in the middle. And you know the defense will be stacked for St. Thomas More. That's why I have them so high at number 1.
Looking through the rest of the top 5, Clark Willow Lake at number 2. Sioux Valley coming in at the 3 spot. Of course, Tate Vinson, just a sophomore, one of the best players already in Class A.
Yeah, you know, Sioux Valley does have some holes to fill, just like every team does. Every year you're going to lose a few seniors, but Tate Vincent has stepped up his game every year, and of course he's been playing since he's been an 8th grader, just a sophomore this year. And so I know they lack some seniors. I know they lack some depth, but they've got 2 stars, and when you've got 2 stars, you've got to put them in the top 5. It was hard for me not to put them even higher. I did see them left off some other top 5, so I think it's important that they are mentioned among the best in the state. And then Sioux Falls Christian, a team a lot of teams are high on, a lot of people are high on. I think they've got the same situation, a lot of depth, and they play in such a tough region
Yes.
with Madison and Del Rapids. Del Rapids, a team I couldn't quite fit in this top 5, who will be very good this year as well.
In fact, you've got Del Rapids, Roncalli, Lennox listed among those guys that are just on the outside of this list.
Watch for them.
Looking in, but certainly going to be a factor as the season goes on. Well, one more class to preview tonight. We'll take you deep into Class B basketball when Varsity Sports returns.
Varsity Sports on Midco Sports Network is presented by AE Tech Electrical Training Center in Rapid City. Varsity Sports on Midco Sports Network is presented by Shields.
South Dakota Class B has 3 players who earned all-state selections back on the court this winter, and all 3 of those players have a good shot at leading their team to the title. Lorenzo Williams, Bo Freeze, and Kobe Johnson are those 3 individuals, and they headline our preseason power rankings in Class B.
Yeah, those 3 players, when you're a great player in Class B, more than any other class, it can influence the rest of the team.
Absolutely.
And those 3 players will definitely have a say in who wins the title this year. I've got Platt Geddes at number 1, and that's because they made such a good run last year. And Kobe Johnson, he's probably the most versatile of those 3 players back on the list. Can rebound, he can shoot, he can drive it to the hole, and he can defend. So look for Platt Geddes to really have a nice season. Right behind them, though, Wolsey Wessington, led by Lorenzo Williams, and Langford, who have had such a great run in the tournament over the last couple years with Bo Freeze back. Maybe not quite the supporting cast that they've had over the last couple years, but nonetheless, a very good team. And then Sanborn Central, Woonsocket, that's a team that made a run last year too. A lot of great athletes on that team. And Warner is probably the team in District 1 that gets it done.
A host of other teams just on the outside looking in deserve an honorable mention here.
A lot of guys. White River, always good. Hanson's got a team that's back. And Elkton Lake Benton with a star in their team. Many teams that could make a run.
All right, that is our time for this week. For Jason Andera, I'm Jay Elsen. Thanks for watching.